This is the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, not on cable platforms. This is the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast as the third bulletin on Wednesday, the 15th of January 2025, from a location in London in the United Kingdom within quotation marks, continuing the world exclusive, original, factual, evidential, historical update, commentary, and analysis about Bangladesh as being reflected in the media, the so-called mainstream media in the United Kingdom, concerning let's see, the resignation on Tuesday by a woman called Tulip Siddiq, who is the daughter of the younger sister of the ousted Bangladesh fascist autocrat despot Sheikh Hasina. Now, Tulip Siddiq is the center of the two named topics, if you like, of attacks on the Keir Starmer fronted regime in the United Kingdom at the present time. And this is what is happening because the attack on Starmer is being focused, centered around his bad judgment, as the Tories have been saying, that is exhibited, demonstrated, evident in his dithering and his failure to give the sack to Tulip Siddiq. And the reason why the Conservatives in the United Kingdom are saying that is nothing to do with the ethical or moral conduct by the Conservatives, or indeed by the British media. It is because as they say in the media, the pegging, the connecting, the linking of the Starmer fronted government member until yesterday, Tulip Siddiq, with Bangladesh. The latest online item that I have accessed in the last 1 hour from Sky News is that a third criminal charge has been issued, confirmed to Sky News by the Anti-Corruption Commission in Bangladesh against Tulip Siddiq. And the Conservatives and the others commenting on Tulip Siddiq's so-called resignation letter published, in which she says that she has decided to stop the distraction, which is what she calls all this news about her corruption, her role in embezzlement and theft, etc., etc. Now, the papers today, I'm going to see if I can get this editorial that is published in the Daily Mail on the 14th, which was yesterday, unedifying tale of two lame ducks. The Daily Mail calls lame ducks Rachel Reeves, the finance minister in the United Kingdom. The post is called the Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's effectively what the finance minister is. And this editorial is about Tulip Siddiq, the first one. That is the first part of the editorial is about Tulip Siddiq. For the record and for evidence, this is worth reading. And they go into some lexicographic, linguistic details. In football, when a club chairman expresses full confidence in the manager, it usually means he is headed for the exit door. Politics can be similar. The very fact Sakya Starma and the Sar is used as a quotation. I don't recognize him being a Sar, but that is a literal part of the text that I'm reading. So the very fact Sakya Starma has had to mount a public defense of Rachel Reeves and Tulip Siddiq is an indication of how much trouble they are in. After just 6 months in government, both are lame ducks, Rachel Reeves and Tulip Siddiq. That means Siddiq is still in post is a complete mystery. As Economic Secretary to the Treasury, her role includes overseeing anti corruption work in the City of London. Yet she and other members of her family stand accused by a commission of inquiry in Bangladesh of embezzlement on a grand scale. Her aunt Sheikh Hasina was prime minister of that country until she was overthrown by a popular uprising amid accusations of financial misappropriation and human rights abuses. Investigations by the Daily Mail. I'm reading that again because it's not the Daily Mail. Investigations by the Mail on Sunday revealed that Miss Siddiq has lived in various London properties provided by political allies of her aunt. One apartment was gifted to her. The interim leader of Bangladesh, Muhammad Yunus, believes she may have benefited from what he describes as robbery of funds from his country. Miss Siddiq is, of course, entitled to the presumption of innocence. Miss Siddiq is, of course, entitled to the presumption of innocence. What they are meaning is that innocence until proven guilty. But while these allegations hang over her position as anti corruption minister in the British government is simply untenable. The charge sheet against that is, I'll read that back again. Investigations by the Mail and Sunday revealed that Miss Siddiq has lived in various London properties provided by political allies of her aunt. One apartment was gifted to her. The interim leader of Bangladesh, Muhammad Yunus, believes she, that is Tulip Siddiq, may have benefited from what he described as robbery of funds from his country. Ms. Siddiq is, of course, entitled to the presumption of innocence. But while these allegations hang over her, her position as anti-corruption minister in the British government fronted by Keir Starmer is simply untenable. She may be an old friend and supporter of Sir Keir, but he needs to cut her loose. The longer she stays, the weaker he looks, and the hollower his pledge to bring integrity back to politics. Now, in the so-called Prime Minister's questions staged in the last hours, Keir Starmer was asked about his dithering and his delay and his failure to sack Tulip Siddiq. Now, instead of stating an original answer, ethical answer, moral answer, Keir Starmer referred to the Conservatives, whose administration included, as cabinet minister, Priti Patel. And Priti Patel was widely reported as having broken the ministerial code, etc., 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 many times. And Starmer said that Kemi Badenoch, the current conservative leader, has no moral superiority over the Labour Party administration that Keir Starmer fronts. That's not original, because that shows that the best that Keir Starmer can do is to find something wrong that was done by the Conservatives when they were in government until the 4th of July 2024. There is no initiative. There is no moral leadership. There is no morally high ethical program being associated with the administration fronted by Keir Starmer. I'll come to that in a minute again. This is the front page of the Daily Mail of Tuesday, which is supported by the editorial in the Daily Mail that I've read part of. Editorial headed "The Unedifying Tale of Two Lame Ducks." And these are the two lame ducks. One is Rachel Reeves, and the other is, of course, Tulip Siddiq. Now, the photographs make both of them look very depressed and very much as if the spotlight has been literally focused on them. And Tulip Siddiq's picture particularly makes her look very nervous, very stressed indeed. So this is the Lame Ducks editorial, two Lame Ducks editorial and front page, of course, in the Daily Mail yesterday. That was later followed by Tulip Siddiq resigning. Now, in the papers today, that is Wednesday, the 15th of January, this is the same Daily Mail edition of the 14th of January, where they are reporting how Tulip Siddiq boasted ecstatic at the election of Sheikh Hasina, and she boastfully told the British Awami League members that is what had happened in 2009. The picture with her aunt, Sheikh Hasina, is dated in 2009. And the caption to that picture reads, "Family, Tulip Siddiq campaigning with her aunt and former Bangladesh Premier Sheikh Hasina." And the other picture next to that picture is, of course, Miss Siddiq with Keir Starmer on election night in 2024. Now, this item, Two Lame Ducks Victory, I'm Ecstatic, is particularly kind of focused on the lies that Tulip Siddiq has perpetrated. That is what they're actually pointing at. Now, I'll return to today's newspapers that I've got. The Times, which cost me £2.80. The I newspaper, which cost me £1. The Sun, which cost me £1.10. The Daily Mail of today, 15th of January, cost me £1.10. The Guardian of today, 15th of January 2025, cost me £3. The Daily Express cost me £1.70. Now, in the Daily Express, they actually, I don't know to what extent they deliberated on running that heading, but it's a very ironic and telling heading. It says Tulip Siddiq resigns in corruption row, but on pages 4 and 5, they've got 2 pages about her. Look at that. It's weak Starmer mired in crisis as corruption minister. Tulip quits over Bangladesh sleaze row. Now look at that. She is described as corruption minister, not as anti-corruption minister, which is what she was supposed to have been in post as until she resigned yesterday. So they have removed the anti and they have amalgamated the two and effectively titled her as the corruption minister. Corruption minister. There's 2 pages. I'm not going to read the 2 pages. What I'm going to do is select bits from that and see if I can read. So what they're talking about, they're saying that the economy is in shambles, which it really isn't. But they have got a slogan and they're sticking to the slogan. Now, this picture of Tulip Siddiq, what is called a grin, a stupid grin. It's an embarrassed Tulip Siddiq in this picture. And I'll read Martin Brown's piece, bits of it, in the Daily Express on page 4. He describes the political editor. Sir Keir Starmer's government was plunged into crisis last night after Treasury Minister Tulip Siddiq quit amid a sleaze row. The Labour MP resigned after a watchdog's probe into her links to an anti-corruption investigation in Bangladesh found she had not breached the ministerial code but criticized the politician's regrettable behavior. He's talking about Magnus inquiry, so-called. Now, Magnus is not an independent investigator. He is a stooge post holder doing the propaganda, relevant propaganda on the ethical front for the benefit of Keir Starmer. Now, Ms. Siddique, who was responsible for tackling economic crime, money laundering, and illicit finance, has faced allegations about properties and land linked to her aunt Sheikh Hasina, the deposed former Bangladesh, well, fascist, but they call her prime minister. Ms. Siddique, a close friend of Sakia, came under scrutiny over her use of properties in London linked to her aunt. I'll read that one again because I have not properly read the apostrophe. Ms. Siddique, a close friend of Sakia, came under scrutiny over her use of properties in London linked to her aunt's allies. And on Monday, authorities in Bangladesh filed a criminal case against her for allegedly using her influence as an MP to illegally acquire land for her mother and siblings. Now, I know and I have known for the whole period since Tulip Siddique was floated in the Bangladeshi community in the UK. And as soon as she was floated, I had a topical reason at that time to tell someone that was around about, how long ago was that? It would be about 10 years ago, thereabouts, that Tulip Siddique belonged to a family of nasties. Now, to what extent my acquaintance believed me doesn't matter, because that acquaintance is responsible as a white woman for not believing most of the things that I have said or done. And the reason is her racism and her stupidity, typical racist stupidity. I have been predicting, now this is now 2025. So I started predicting precisely the events that have been happening now, and they've been happening for the last 62 years. I predicted correctly that the concept of the separation of East Pakistan from the United Pakistan at that time in the 1960s that I was talking about, the country. The concept of separation was being contaminated by the concept of the Thugs Party, the Awami League. And I observed, because I did not join any political party, despite the fact that I had the highest political awareness, because I didn't have any confidence in the ability of any of the political parties that were operating in running the country to the right, correct destination, serving the people. So I decided to become an observer, an activist, conscientious observer. One of the observations I made repeatedly throughout the 1960s was the Awami League was the Thugs Party. the Crooks Party. In a recent edition of this channel, I have paid my objective recognition to Sheikh Mujib because I believe that despite the various things that I find I cannot agree with him on, he did have undeniable concern and dedication for the people of East Pakistan at that time. And I contrast Sheikh Mujib with the baggage carriers of the Thaqs party that he fronted. Now, the coverage of the Philip Siddiq events and corruption and theft, etc., by the British newspapers is superficial, shallow, ignorant, because they don't really care about the people of Bangladesh. They are concerned about being able to find an angle in what is happening in Bangladesh, an angle that they can actually peg to the scenario in the United Kingdom where they can use that event or topic or issue to have a go, to attack, to have a go at Keir Starmer and to attack the Labour Party and to facilitate the plausibility of a return to power of the Conservatives, or in the alternative of the nasty Nigel Farage's reform cabal. So therefore the coverage is really shallow. So I'll move from the Daily Express over to the other ones. Let me check if the camera can catch. So that's the Daily Express. The Guardian rarely, this is the Guardian, which has done a rare thing. The Guardian is a corrupt newspaper. Although it pretends to be against corruption, it is the most corrupt newspaper because it is based on a big pretense. Is the Guardian that corruptly colluded with the idea of promoting Lutfur Rahman in Tower Hamlets throughout the 5 years that Lutfur Rahman was in place as an incumbent in the post of mayor at the expense of the people of Tower Hamlets. So this one as a front page, a critical front page if you like, or a front page item that is about a critical item, let's say, that the Guardian is running about anyone to do with the Labour Party. And the headline is a giveaway. It doesn't say theft, embezzlement, corruption, anything. It's a completely oblique, stupid, timid, cowardly stupidity by the Guardian decision makers, editorial decision makers, who put that stupid heading. After inquiry into property could be innocent, isn't it? And then the subheading is Labour MP steps aside amid allegations of unlinked links to Bangladesh. Can you believe that? It's not about links to Bangladesh, you fucking morons. It's corruption, theft, embezzlement, you shitbags. So the contrast with the Guardian is, of course, the Daily Mail, and it is celebrating the fact that Tulip Siddiq has resigned, and they are saying that it's one lame duck down. This is the one they're comparing with yesterday's Daily Mail. Two lame ducks and then one lame duck down. Now, just 24 hours after the Prime Minister insisted he had full confidence in her, Tulip Siddiq resigns over Mail's corruption probe revelations. So, how secure is the crisis hit Chancellor? He also backed feeling today that that's the thing. They're trying to use that to have a go at the Starmer fronted Labour Party government in the United Kingdom. Now, contrast even that limitation makes the Daily Mail morally far superior in context to the stupid, idiotic, opportunistic, corrupt heading that the Daily Mail on the front page, so the Guardian on the front page is running. Siddiq quits as minister after inquiry into property. And they're saying she's one of the two lame ducks. And they're saying that it's a corruption that they were investigating. And the Guardian doesn't say corruption. It says links. Fuck them. Fuck the Guardian. Whoever worships the fucking Guardian among the population anywhere, and in the countries like Bangladesh, India, or Pakistan, whatever, the Guardian is still treated as a better newspaper than the Daily Mail. I don't think the evidence supports that. And this is the evidence, typical evidence. Anyway, so going back to the Guardian on the inside, let's see on page 12. It has got the item. That same picture, of course, it's a picture taken from the Sky News when the doorstepped her yesterday, before she resigned. Yesterday or maybe on Monday. Oh yes, that this is a picture from Tuesday. Now they're still talking about the heading in the Guardian. Siddiq quits after ethics inquiry into family financial ties to Bangladesh. Fuck them. And Pipa Krira, the political editor of the Guardian, say number 10 insiders. Now, even that is stupid. Well, she got Pipa Krira gets into some of the key issues. I'm not going to read that, but she does recognize some of the odd things, including this saying. She's quoting Tulip Siddiq saying, I wasn't part of my aunt's delegation. That is talking about delegation to Russia in 2013. I went because I don't get to see her much. She told the Evening Standard. At the meeting, Putin said, is your family here? I'd like a picture. In retrospect, I should have thought about how it looked. I think Putin would wonder Who is this random girl I'm meant to be making arms deals with? There are now some inside Downing Street after the scale of our links to the ousted Bangladeshi government became clear. It wasn't the ousted Bangladeshi government, you fucking moron. It was the corrupt fascist that had been there in power for 15 years that was ousted by the outraged people of Bangladesh at last. This is the thing that I was anticipating, I was foreseeing in 1960s when I said that the Thugs Party would destroy the country, not improve it, not make it better. Can you believe the billions of pounds being stolen from the people of Bangladesh? How can that be reconciled with the promises, the slogans, and the promises that the BBC and the Guardian dishonestly amplified, magnified during the whole period of the 9 months of 1971? And I suffered the BBC World Service from Dhaka during 1971, included the completely untruthful promise, untruthful premise as well as promise. The premise was that the Punjabis, that is another name for the military establishment that controlled the Pakistan military, the Punjabis were looting the Bengalis, and the Bengalis were being exploited and victimized by the Punjabis. And the promise, implicit in that premise, of course, was that once the Bengalis were liberated or separated or allowed to secede from the United Federation of Pakistan, Bengal, they meant East Pakistan, not the West Bengal province of India, which still continues. That East Bengal would become a golden paradise. That would never happen. When I saw the slogans of the thugs and the thugs beating up opposition demonstrators during the 1960s, I knew that thugs would rule. There would be no paradise because it was the thugs who would be in control. And while I looked around East Pakistan politically in the 1960s, I couldn't find any other party or organization that was capable, remotely comparable to mobilize any kind of enthusiastic activists to combat, let alone defeat, the Thugs Party. Now, the Thugs Party, under Sheikh Hasina and her frontage, has also been the mass rapist, gang rapist party. I attended the MC College and absolutely remember the events. Awami League supporting thugs called the Chhatra League or Student League would routinely, regularly, physically beat up other parties, especially including the Student Union, which was allied to the Chinese Communist Party. And I could not see any sign of opposition, physical opposition to the violence unleashed by the thugs of the Student League. So when I heard in 2000, was it September 2000 that the gang rape happened in MC College, 2020, I knew that nothing could happen. And nothing has happened to the criminals. 7 of the criminals who gang raped this girl, young girl, teenage girl married, on the precincts, within the precincts of the MC College hostel. They've been allowed all kinds of pretexts and excuses to deny justice to their victim or victims. Instead, they've been allowed to issue threats. They would kill the victim or her husband, etc., etc. And Sheikh Hasina, who was promoted, praised by this niece of hers, stayed silent, complicit with the gang rapists. Extrapolate that gang rape by 1,000 times across Bangladesh. And there are gang rapes, individual rapes, gang rapes, individual rapes all over Bangladesh. And she's supposed to have been the woman leader, longest serving or longest staying woman leader in a country, anywhere. So that's the Guardian. And then we go back to the Daily Mail and see what they're saying today. One lame duck down. And after Miss Siddiq was accused of lying to the Mail on Sunday about who had gifted her a flat, he said it is unfortunate that she had been forced to correct the record. He concluded that while she had not broken the ministerial code, he meaning the Magnas, and he had not identified evidence of improprieties, and I'll come to that linguistic con, Sakia should consider her ongoing responsibilities as anti-corruption minister. Now, when Magnas says he had not identified evidence of improprieties, what he was hiding and he was denying and contradicting actually, was that he could identify evidence, but he could not. But he did not, which means that he could identify the evidence of improprieties, but he decided, in order to appease Keir Starmer, Magnas decided not to identify evidence of improprieties. So he's called Sir Laurie Magnas. Despite Sir Laurie's damning advice, the Prime Minister, a close personal friend and political ally of Miss Siddiq's, told her, that is, Starmer told Siddiq, that the door remains open for you going forward. In his reply now, he still thinks that after all this, Tulip Siddiq is fit to be a member of his cabinet, his government. Now that shows Keir Starmer not just having poor judgment, but being completely dishonest, stupid, in denial. Because when the first allegations surfaced, within literally weeks of the 4th of July 2024 election, that Wahid Ali, can you believe that? Wahid Ali, of all people, a Muslim homosexual, being overhyped as the homosexual Muslim by the anti-Muslim criminals who wanted to inflict the gravest possible moral attacks on the Muslims for allegedly being the persecutors of gay people. That's why they gave him all the opportunities. So this Muslim homosexual with a stupid spelling of his name, both Wahid and Ali are very unconventional. So when the news broke within a short time of the 4th of July 2024 election in the United Kingdom, the Starmer and other members of his cabinet had been given absolutely money and other things, including Starmer being given spectacles, etc., etc., etc. When the news came, what did it make him look? He looked like a beggar. He completely came across, when the details came out, Starmer, who has been always highly paid as a licensed law trader. That is my original phrase for these criminals. Now, I rejected in 1973, I rejected the opportunity of becoming a barrister in 1973 because I had a big row with the administrator of the Lincoln's Inn, a racist woman called Bates, Barbara Bates. And when I had that row with her, and this racist criminal insulted my intelligence and matronized me by commenting on my English, I thought I'm not going to have anything to do with these criminals because I would be having to associate with criminals like her. So I chucked that opportunity out and I said no to becoming a barrister. Now that was 1973. I would have by now, would have been a QC and a judge or whatever. But I said no to all of those. That is one of the hundreds of opportunities I have chucked away in preference of ethical, moral, independent action. Now, back to the Daily Mail today on page 2. The Daily Mail of Wednesday, the 15th of January 2025, still talking about both Rachel Reeves and her deputy until yesterday, Siddiq. On Monday, Sakiar was forced into insisting that he backed Miss Reeves to remain Chancellor until the end of Parliament after earlier refusing to do so. Ms. Siddique's treatment differs markedly from the former Transport Secretary Louise Hay, who quit almost immediately following questions about a fraud conviction. The handling of the crisis over Siddique's links to her aunt Sheikh Hasina's regime has raised questions about the Prime Minister's political judgment. The day before her departure, Number 10 voiced full confidence in her in spite of several weeks of damaging headlines. Last night, opposition parties rounded on the government for drawing out the process in the face of mounting calls for Ms. Siddique to resign. Mounting calls for Ms. Siddique to resign, not Siddique's to resign. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch accused the Prime Minister of weak leadership and questioned whether he had delayed the process due to his friendship with the minister. She said, that is Kemi Badenoch, it was clear at the weekend that the anti-corruption minister's position was completely untenable. Yet Keir Starmer dithered and delayed to protect his close friend. Even now, as Bangladesh files a criminal case against Tulip Siddique, he expresses sadness at her inevitable resignation. Weak leadership from a weak prime minister. Well, I would say that he is not only weak, he is corrupt to the core. During 2011, I sent to him, in his then position as the Director of Public Prosecutions, at least a dozen, if not more, communications detailing actual crimes happening in Tower Hamlets. And the crook did not reply, nor did any of his sidekicks reply, acknowledge, let alone take action. So I'm not talking as if I'm talking from 1,000 miles away. I'm actually somebody among the rare member of the population, the demography, the mixed demography of the United Kingdom, who has had long-standing experience of the stupidity, ignorance, unfitness for purpose, and the corruption of Keir Starmer. So when he became a beggar, and he begged a lot of goodies, including a stay in one of the flats owned by Wahid Ali, the Muslim homosexual. This is a propaganda reference I'm making, not against their homosexual proclivities or rights or whatever. These people, Keir Starmer in particular, when he was ending his 5-year stint as the Director of Public Prosecutions in the Crown Prosecution Service, Keir Starmer openly made it legally tougher for vulnerable people, poor people, to claim benefits for survival. And this shitbag, in the post as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is exposed as having been at the receiving end of goodies and bribes and whatever by this Muslim homosexual, Wahid Ali. Where can you find the example, the language, to condemn these morons, these absolute, unfit for purpose liabilities? And this Daily Mail piece on page 2 is quite long. I'm not going to read this because a lot of it is repeating, paraphrasing their own publications about Tulip Siddiq. And her replacement as the minister was Emma Reynolds. And Emma Reynolds herself is already compromised as being somebody who has lobbied hard for the Chinese. With the Chinese, the British government is now, or has been, in significant conflict for business reasons. And not only for recent policies by the Chinese. Historically, because the Chinese claim Hong Kong and the British occupied it, and the last British governor of Hong Kong was, of course, the conservative ex-minister, Chris Patten. Now, during his 3 years, I think, the last 3 years of his stay, Chris Patten was regularly haunted and described and decried and condemned by the Chinese propaganda machine, which is absolutely considerable. And he was routinely called a whore, a prostitute. Now, there is a piece on pages 6 and 7 of the Daily Mail today, the 15th of January 2025, which has had a marquee award of the holier than thou MP. Holier than thou meaning the person they're describing as MP here has claimed to be holier than others. That is, she was morally superior than her critics. So let's see what that Abul Tahir piece says. This is the 2 pages. One is the government of service. What a load of cobblers. This is Dan Hodges. Now, people who don't know the British politics closely may benefit from the knowledge that I can include here about who Dan Hodges is. Dan Hodges is the only son of the now deceased actress and member of parliament, Glenda Jackson. Now, Glenda Jackson used to be the MP of the very constituency with slight changes in the boundary changes that Tulip Siddiq has been an MP of since the last elections. So he is saying, Dan Hodges, that Keir Starmer fronted Labour Party or Labour government, saying that they are a government of service. But he's saying it at the end of this piece, the last paragraph, a government of service may be, but service to whom? He's implying, of course, including China, which is a negative point in the current context. Now, Abul Tahir, the reporter who exposed the scandal, that is what it is saying. Now, let's see if the camera is working. This is the reporter that is there boasting that he is the reporter who exposed the scandal. And he, Abul Tahir, ends his piece. Dozens of Bangladeshis contacted me via social media, email, and phone calls, thanking me for investigating Ms. Siddiq. They said that her aunt's government, from which Ms. Siddiq continued to distance herself, had not only committed the worst human rights abuses in the country for the past 15 years, but they also looted the country like never before. Remember what I said about my predictions about what the thugs would do, my predictions in the 1960s about the thugs party, the Awami League. It was the world's worst kleptocracy, they told me, that is the Bangladeshis, the dozens who contacted Abul Tahir by social media, email, and phone calls. Today, that is Abul Tahir is saying today, I am pleased to have them. I'll read that again because I have misread that. Today, I am pleased to have made them happy. Well, how is it that somebody in the Daily Mail or the Daily Mail group has broken the story about Tulip Siddiq? Nobody in the Guardian, nobody in any of the other outlets, not in the BBC either. And all the others that have been now running stories of one kind or another about the same set of scandals have been denying effectively that the story was broken by the Daily Mail. I have no unconditional time for the Daily Mail. In fact, I'm one of the most consistent critics of the Daily Mail because of its racism and its alliance with the Nazis in the 1930s and its fascist propensities now. But I do recognize one-off things like this one, the investigation into Tulip Siddiq. Now, when she said that she was ecstatic that her aunt was the prime minister elect, she obviously came across as an idiot. There is no such concept in parliamentary democracy as a prime minister elect because there is no election to a post, to a constituency called prime minister. Now that shows her stupidity, and also that shows the stupidity of the newspapers that haven't commented on that stupid remark. Prime minister elect. There is no such thing. It's only the head of state as post of president that the election is sought to be filled. Prime minister becomes a post created by the majority of those who form the government after an election. Now, Putin's nuclear deal, a tangled web of properties, and how I shone spotlight on the murky world of holier than thou MP. Now let's read a bit of that by Abul Tahir, the reporter who exposed the scandal. In the end, perhaps the only surprise was why the Prime Minister allowed his scandal-hit friend Tulip Siddiq to wither so long before our inevitable pruning. The wither and pruning is to do with the plants in the garden, cutting the plant, and withering is the one that is old and dying. Old meaning the plant, the energy is lost and it's shaking before it's cut. Why didn't she go sooner? True, Sakya Starma and City Minister Ms. Siddiq have long been friends. Well, it's not that long. It cannot be very long. It must have coincided with the death of Frank Dobodopson, who was the member for a long time for the constituents that Keir Starmer now actually occupies, and the appearance of Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh. Because Hasina, the crook, had been, it now appears, spreading the tentacles through the Bangladeshi community in the United Kingdom. Now, there is a very serious distinction to be made. The ordinary Bangladeshi migrants that came to the United Kingdom, that have come to the United Kingdom for the last 100 plus years, have nothing to do with any political party for which they came here. It's impossible. These are people mainly describable as economic migrants. So once they're here, they're then targeted, and they have been successfully targeted by the criminals called the Awami League. They're not to be confused with the Awami League, the Bangladeshis, whose entity politically I have been creating for the last 6 decades. And the defining activities that I've been doing, I shall be listing and updating on in another edition or in more than one later editions. The Bangladeshis in the United Kingdom ordinarily are concerned about their immediate families in Bangladesh and their own selves and own relations and surroundings. When they're targeted by the sickness infected Sheikh Hasina and the thugs of the Awami League, they are used as fodder. And they've been used as fodder most effectively by Hasina to establish her family's root and family's foundation. Families found, hold, control within the Labour Party in a tactical way. Because Starmer is a right winger. He's not a general Democrat, he's a fascist. He's a supporter of the genocidist massacres of Palestinians. Now, go back to Tulip Siddique's CB and the row that she had with Channel 4 News in 2017 with Alex Thompson, then the leading investigative reporter on Channel 4 News, was about Alex Thompson saying that she was championing Nazanin Ghaffari Ratcliffe, who was being held in Iran, and yet she was ignoring the plight of a British-trained lawyer being persecuted by her aunt in Bangladesh. When that encounter happened, the Palestinian people are being massacred as ruthlessly by the Nazi type of genocidist regime in Israel as they are now, as they have been since the October Hamas intervention. Tulip Siddique has not voiced any mentionable concern for the rights of the Palestinians, for the lives of the thousands of Palestinian children that have been massacred, being massacred and genocided by the Nazi state of Israel, genocidist state of Israel. Just as Musk has not condemned Israel. The very Musk, Elon Musk, who condemned Jess Phillips as a rape genocide apologist. So Tulip Siddique, she cannot be called holier than thou on the evidence of her behavior. So that's a correction to Abul Tahir's piece. Now, Abul Tahir says that like Miss Siddique, I am of Bangladeshi origin. Now, this is the first time that Abul Tahir is identifying himself and had kept half an eye on Miss Siddique's fortunes as she campaigned to become a Labour MP in 2015. She was championed by, among others, actress Dame Emma Thompson. Her seat was Hampstead in North London. After all, then suddenly Miss Siddique became more interested. Now I'll read that again. Then suddenly Miss Siddique became more interesting than I could have possibly imagined. Around this time, the Mail on Sunday revealed that Miss Siddique had visited Moscow with her family 2 years earlier, posing photos with Vladimir Putin, a misstep that didn't augur well for her future parliamentary career. Then the spotlight fell on her for another reason. It turned out she was the niece of Sheikh Hasina, then Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who was ruling the country with an iron fist. That is putting it mildly. In fact, it was Hasina signing £1 billion arms deal with Putin, and now infamous nuclear power deal, of which more later, that brought Miss Siddiq to Moscow. The Labour insisted that Miss Siddiq had been totally separate from any official delegation, but was invited to an event with her family. We revealed, that is the Mail on Sunday, the Daily Mail group, how Miss Siddiq tried to bury the Putin photo and delete posts and images on her blog that showed her campaigning for her aunt in Bangladesh in 2008. By 2015, Hasina's regime was characterized by allegations of human rights abuses and rampant corruption. Political opponents were made to simply disappear. By now, I was watching Ms. Siddique's rise through the British opposition backbenches and the volatile politics of Bangladesh with an even keener interest. In 2022, a holier than thou, Ms. Siddique was noisily criticizing then Chancellor Rishi Sunak over his wife Oksana's tax affairs and non-dom status. And she wrote an article for the Times highlighting how increasingly British properties were being registered in offshore tax havens. This, she said, was a way for dirty money from Russia to flood Britain. I soon discovered, however, that our own mother lived in a 1.2 million pound house in Golders Green, North London, registered in the offshore tax haven of the Isle of Man. What is more, we found 5-bedroom house was registered using a Russian doll system of companies, which meant examining one company revealed it was owned by yet another. In the end, we traced it to the family of Salman F. Rahman, one of Bangladesh's richest tycoons. Hypocrisy. There was more. In April 2022, I discovered that Miss Siddique owned a flat near London's King's Cross, which she acquired in 2004 when she had just left King's College London as an MA student and appeared to have no income. By any reckoning, this seemed rather fishy. The more so when a perusal of land registry documents showed that it was either bought for cash or, more likely, as we suspected, was gifted to her by its previous owner, Abdul Muttalib, a property developer with links to her despot aunt. It was left to the Labour Party to speak on Miss Siddique's behalf. It said Miss Siddique's parents bought it for her from the sale of a family property. Any suggestion this money came from any other source is entirely wrong and defamatory. A Labour official told us. There the matter temporarily rested. Armed with new information, we went back to Miss Siddique in July 2022. She repeated that the house was bought by her parents, then threatened the Mail on Sunday with legal action if we published our story. Once again, I put the matter on the back burner, but returned to it in July this year, that is 2024, he meant. This piece is appearing in 2025, so he has got it wrong, this date of the year. Once again, I put the matter on the back burner, but returned to it in July this year, not July this year, July 2024, when Labour won its historic election landslide. Ms. Siddique was now city minister, an economic secretary to the treasury, effectively the anti-corruption minister, tasked with stamping out economic crime. It was this elevation that would lead my story when we were eventually able to publish ironic piquancy. Within weeks of Labour winning the election, the Mail and Sunday published our first investigation into Miss Siddique's living arrangements. We shall be continuing with this in later editions. This is ending at 1 hour, 15 minutes long.